Well, hello and welcome back. I wanted to make a video answering and kind of interviewing my wife and asking her some of the questions that you guys asked me about tiny house living. So I want to introduce my wife, Stacey, and I'm going to ask her some questions. And the first question that I have for you, and for those who don't know, is this is our house behind us here, and we've lived in this house for a year and a half. And we have 3 boys and a dog and 2 cats, so we have kind of experienced a lot in terms of tiny house living, and we wanted to share some of those insights with you. But what has been, for the first question, what has been your favorite part about living in a tiny house?
I mean, there's a lot that we really liked and really loved about living. I guess we usually called it the cabin. I felt like a little bit pretentious or trendy saying tiny house, because we didn't really, I like to think we didn't go into it for those reasons. But back to the question. So one of the things that I really liked was cleaning the house, being able to clean the house really quickly in comparison to a normal size house. It was like I kick the boys outside, and like in an afternoon I could have the house kind of clean top to bottom. So
You can't do that with a normal house. You need probably a few days to be able to clean the house from top to
so
bottom.
that was really nice, because I'm not good at like homemaking and cleaning. So to be able to like clean such a small space quickly was great. The other thing, and I guess that I would kind of add on to that, is like all the fresh air that you kind of have to get from living in such a small space. Like I said, kicking the kids out, they're outside getting fresh air and enjoying the outdoors, and we are too, because you kind of just at some point get a little bit, not claustrophobic, but you're like, let's eat outside, let's go play outside, because this is sort of is utilitarian the right word? It's like this space is useful space. There's not just wasted, just relaxing space. This is just my room for my reading nook. This space is used for so many things. So sometimes you're just ready to get outside, and I really liked that. I remember walking to where we had a washer in like a separate cabin. It wasn't an indoor cabin. It was just like a throw stuff in it cabin. But I remember making that long walk and just like enjoying the birds and all that. So
yeah, being more engaged with nature and everything around you. Which kind of segues into our second question, which is, what was your least favorite part? And I think you mentioned earlier, it has to do with weather and talking about getting outside. If this is only utilitarian and you only live in this during the morning and the evenings, and you sleep in it, and you can't get outside, I think that's probably segues into your least favorite part.
Yeah. It's hard to narrow down for me, like, what was your favorite, like your one favorite thing or your one least favorite thing? Because there's just a lot. But we, in this area, for some reason, when there's a big rainstorm, it can last for like a couple days. And one time we had my brother's family here, which is like 5 people total, and they had a pop-up camper, so they could sleep in that at night. But during the day, you don't want to hang out in a pop-up camper, so we were like all in here, and that's a lot of people. And even if it's just us, if we're stuck inside with like a bad storm, or even the summer, sometimes it's just like a really hot day outside, and the kids, you kick them out and they show back up at the door like 30 minutes later because it's so hot. So the weather is a little bit more of your master when you don't have a huge ranch house that's all air conditioned. And you can kick the kids to the opposite side, and their noise is on the opposite side of that house. So the weather.
And it forces you to be cramped inside more. and on each other's nerves more when it's bad weather outside.
And if I can say one more thing, if I can have two least favorite things, cooking with super limited counter space and limited kitchen gadgets and pots and pans. And if you like healthy cooking, so if you want to do sprouting or if you have your kombucha going, and I know those are like a little bit whatever, not to be trendy with those, but if you want healthier cooking and you don't, or if you want a pantry with like all your different grains, your space is so limited, your counter space is so limited that you have to get really creative. And
well, the other thing too is you're cooking in the summer in a really small space. If you're cooking inside and you're trying to cool the space in which you're cooking, and you have, let's say you have something in the oven or you have something going on the burners, it's going to heat that space really quickly.
Yeah,
and it's
really
going to fight against the air conditioning that you're running at the same time, and it's going to be really frustrating. And so while you're trying to cool it on a hot summer day, you're also heating it back up by cooking that night's dinner.
When we moved back to our regular size house, I was so much more mindful. Anytime I use the oven or a burner, I'm heating the house up, so I'm really aware of that now. But
number 3, what was the biggest sacrifice that you feel you had to make while moving into a tiny house?
When I thought of this, I think we would probably both agree, even though we're both pretty serious introverts, the biggest sacrifice was being able to host people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it was like, hey, you guys can come over. Do you like being outside? Do you like eating outside? Because we're gonna have to. So.
Yeah, and we would have like a picnic table set up outside and host people there. Mm-hmm. But sometimes like mosquitoes might be an issue, or insects.
Weather
if it's too
it was
cold.
Like we were planning on having people over, and it's like, is it gonna rain because we have we're planning to eat outside, and if it rains, there's gonna be 10 of us inside.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting.
Well, and also, like, let's say you just have a couple people over and you can fit them in your living room and you can all sit there. And it's like, if they have to get up and use the restroom, it's really awkward because the restroom is like 10 feet away. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's really no sound barrier. So, you can use your imagination. I mean, it makes it awkward for hosting people, and it is tough, and it really cuts into kind of your social life. But if they don't mind being outdoors and the weather is nice, then that's the way to go.
Also, if you're super introverted and you want an excuse not to host people, that's
yeah, that's true.
I may have used that a couple times.
I feel like most people who get into tiny house living are really extroverted people who like a lot of other people. I could be wrong. But
and I wanted to add one more thing on there. Books are the second biggest sacrifice.
Yeah, you love books.
And we homeschool, so it's like, yeah, books and supplies for that.
Yeah, and not having the space for all the books that you want to read. Number 4, what would you say to someone considering moving into a tiny house or having this lifestyle of living in a very small, minimalistic space? What would you say to them?
I think just really knowing what you're getting into, like really researching it, really taking time to think about it. We were, I would say moderately, not unhappy is a strong word, but we were not content with like the lives we were living, and we wanted
more simplistic.
We wanted a change, and we talked about it and planned for a year.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And worked out budget after budget. Can we make this work? And so, yeah, just planning, researching, and, if you can afford to rent a little cabin somewhere for a week on a vacation with your family, that's
it's a good trial.
It's a good trial because the clothes you have with you are the clothes you have in a suitcase, which isn't, you don't have that much more. Like, we didn't have that much more with us than what you would have in a suitcase. And the things that you're like, you only have the utensils that they furnish, and it's
yeah. And I would add too, you're probably watching a lot of YouTube videos. The reason why you're watching this video now, maybe you're considering about it. So the first thing you do is you watch YouTube videos, or you see a show,
we did a lot of.
But just be careful because some of those YouTube videos make it look really glamorous because it's like a couple that's like in their 20s and they don't have any kids and they don't have any messes or anything like that. There's no poopy diapers that smell up the whole place. So it's not a very realistic picture of what tiny house living is really like. But if, let's say you're a middle-aged couple and your kids are gone and moved out of the house, then this might be perfect for you and you might absolutely love it. But if you're looking, especially if you're looking to get out of like debt or something like that, this might be a really good option for you to sell your house and buy something smaller on a small piece of property.
I mean, I think what we would say is there's a good amount of sacrifices that go along with the things that you can gain and enjoy about tiny house. It's very
So
give and take.
My last question, everybody was commenting on videos I would post saying, okay, you're moving out of a tiny house, now your wife is going to be happy, or your wife must have hated her life living in such a small place. So first of all, did you hate your life living in a tiny house?
No, I loved it. I really, I say that sounds, oh, it was all great, but no, I overall I really liked it.
And would you do it again?
And I would absolutely do it again. I was just thinking that, you know, in the future, that if it's feasible for you to do work less basically, or do what you love, so, and if living in a small house that costs way less, you know, you don't have a mortgage, etc., like if that makes it possible that we see more of him and he loves what he does and he's like with our sons more hours a week, that's, you know,
it's worth a headache, of living in a tiny house,
Well, and that absolutely. So I think there's a pretty good likelihood that within the next 5 years, that we would do it again.
Definitely. Well, I just wanted to share some honest answers from my wife about tiny house living, and so you can show this to your wife. And maybe you're trying to push her over the edge of moving into a tiny house, and you can show her that this wife would do it again if she had the option to. But we hope you guys like this video. If I deserve it, would you mind giving the video a thumbs up and ask any comments or questions you have? Make sure
if there are any other questions, we could certainly try our best to answer them.
And I'm busy. I work full-time as a teacher, so I can't promise I'll get to all the comments and questions, but I always do my best to answer your questions that you have. Thanks, guys, for your encouragement. And if you want to see any of our prior videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Maybe you can click right here, right here in this invisible space here. And maybe you want to watch a video of a walkthrough of our tiny house. You can click on her face. Click on her face for a video walkthrough of a tiny house, of this tiny house. Thank you, guys. Bye.